Things got heated on The View when Joy Behar and Dr. Phil went head-to-head. Joy came out swinging, calling Donald Trump a textbook narcissist, claiming his behavior checks every box for the disorder. She laid out her case: his obsession with winning, constant need for praise, and refusal to accept blame. But then Dr. Phil stepped in, and let's just say he wasn't having it. What followed was a serious reality check that left Joy visibly struggling to keep her composure.
If I was a little closer to him, I would have said, "What is your problem?"
Right.
But I didn't.
But you know what his problem
But
is.
my body language was, I'm not Joy Behar.
It all started when Joy Behar launched into a passionate critique of Donald Trump, doubling down on a claim she's made before. But this time, she came prepared with the DSM-5 in hand. Citing psychologists and mental health experts, Joy read directly from the diagnostic manual, insisting that Trump fits the textbook definition of narcissistic personality disorder. She backed it up with key examples: his obsession with winning, his constant need for praise, and his refusal to ever admit fault. The panel was locked in. Sunny Hostin chimed in, saying she had spoken with psychologists who agreed. Whoopi Goldberg signaled her usual support, nodding along. Even Ana Navarro weighed in, arguing that these behaviors aren't just concerning, they're dangerous in a leader.
To me, the tragedy was the injustice, in my opinion.
Which part? Which injustice?
The criminal trial. The fact that he was not found guilty.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
but he
see.
was found liable later,
Yes.
civilly.
Like Trump is found liable.
Yes, he was.
It's the same thing.
Well, everything goes back to Trump.
Until he's gone, I will not rest.
At first, it seemed like just another round of The View taking aim at Trump. The audience was engaged, and social media was already buzzing. But then, Dr. Phil stepped in, and let's just say, he wasn't about to let that slide. In his signature calm and collected manner, he didn't just react, he broke down Joy's argument piece by piece. "Look, Joy, I respect you, but let's be careful here," he began. "There's a big difference between having narcissistic traits and being diagnosed with a full-blown personality disorder." He went on to explain that while Trump might exhibit certain narcissistic behaviors, that alone doesn't mean he meets the clinical definition of NPD. Dr. Phil also pointed out that many highly successful people, CEOs, business moguls, even past presidents, share similar traits. Confidence, ambition, and resilience against criticism can sometimes look like narcissism, but that doesn't automatically mean someone has a psychological disorder. And then he got to the real issue.
You know, people...
When we start diagnosing political figures we don't like, we walk a dangerous line. Weaponizing psychology to attack opponents is irresponsible. For a moment, the panel was speechless, but not for long, because Joy Behar wasn't about to back down. She doubled down, insisting that Trump's behavior went far beyond normal leadership traits. Come on, Dr. Phil, we're not just talking about confidence here. This is a man who lies constantly, refuses to accept responsibility, and attacks anyone who challenges him. But Dr. Phil was just getting started. He challenged Joy, asking us, if we're going to psychoanalyze politicians, why stop at Trump? Why not apply the same standards to President Biden or other leaders? The room went quiet for a beat. Then Joy shot back, "Oh, come on, Phil. Biden may have his faults, but he's not constantly bragging about himself or insulting people on social media." The panel nodded in agreement, backing her up. Dr. Phil wasn't letting that slide. He pointed out how the media often focuses on one side while ignoring similar behaviors elsewhere. "Joy, you know as well as I do that politics is full of big personalities. If we cherry-pick traits to fit a diagnosis, we could slap this label on half of Washington, D.C. And then came the moment no one expected. Dr. Phil turned the mirror back on The View itself. Let's take a step back. If we're really talking about narcissistic traits, let's ask an honest question. How many of these apply to the people sitting at this very table?
You're saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
For the first time in the segment, Joy Behar didn't have an immediate comeback. When the energy in the room shifted, Dr. Phil had just taken the conversation in a direction no one expected. He methodically broke down the traits of narcissism: need for admiration, superiority complex, dismissing opposing views, and dominating conversations. Then he turned to the panel and asked, "You don't think that applies here? Even just a little bit?" The tension was undeniable. Dr. Phil pointed out how The View often shuts down differing opinions, rallies its audience for validation, and reacts aggressively when challenged. Y'all have built a platform where the loudest voice wins, where disagreement gets shouted down. Tell me that doesn't fit some of these traits. At this point, Joy Behar was visibly frustrated. Her irritation was clear, and the debate was far from over. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, Judge Jeanine Pirro jumped in, and let's just say she had a lot to add.
Your opening statement, which was how horrible it is, that Donald Trump is talking about
that's
all
what you,
of these
I'm
people.
sorry,
You know
baby,
what I
that's
think
what you
is
said.
horrible?
You said,
Whoopi, you know
you
what's
said
horrible?
that
When
it
people
was,
who
it's
shouldn't
okay.
be here end up children of American citizens.
You know what's hard?
Judge Jeanine Pirro wasted no time pushing back against Joy's comments and coming to Trump's defense. You want to talk about narcissism? Let's talk about results. Because if you're going to judge a man's character, you need to look at what he's actually done, not just how he talks. She fired back. She highlighted Trump's history of private philanthropy, donations, and charitable efforts, arguing that people are quick to paint him as a selfish villain, but ignore the times he's helped others behind the scenes. How many of you know that he's helped countless people without making a show of it? She challenged. Then she flipped the conversation. Dude, if we're going to talk about generosity, let's compare fairly. Look at the Obamas. How much of their wealth has actually gone back to everyday Americans? Or are they just collecting Netflix deals and book advances while lecturing the rest of us? Suddenly, the debate wasn't just about Trump's personality. It had shifted into a larger argument about who actually gives back versus who just talks about it. The tension in the room was palpable. Whoopi Goldberg tried to steer the discussion back, arguing that philanthropy doesn't erase personality flaws. Sonny Hostin jumped in, claiming that Trump's donations don't outweigh his controversies, but Judge Jeanine stood her ground, insisting that Trump had done more for working-class Americans than the political elite ever had. At this point, the room was electric, passionate, fiery, and completely divided, and whether you loved or hated what was being said, one thing was clear. This was one of The View's most explosive debates in a long time.
Questioning, why is Dr. Phil there? What is
Because
Dr.
it is
Phil
now a
doing
reality show. This is the new reality show. And I'm
show you why
hoping
he
that
was
we
there.
can put music behind this.
Yes.
Because it's only going to be a matter of weeks before we start to see,
Great idea.
I mean, just folks showing up. What is going on?
By the time the dust settled, it was clear. This debate wasn't just about Trump, it was about hypocrisy and the dangers of playing armchair psychologist. Dr. Phil exposed a major flaw in the media's habit of diagnosing public figures for convenience. He called out the selective outrage and double standards that often shape political discussions. And Joy, she may have been rattled, but she wasn't backing down. Yet whether she admitted it or not, the conversation had already sparked something bigger. The debate over media bias, political narratives, and who really gets to decide who's the problem was now front and center. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. Was Dr. Phil right to challenge Joy's argument, or do you side with The View on this one? Did Judge Jeanine make a valid point, or did she miss the mark? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to stay updated on all the latest celebrity and political drama, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We've got all the tea and you won't want to miss a drop.